Hello, everyone. Welcome to Murder We Spoke. It's been a minute. We're back.
Back in action.
Back in action. And
After,
today,
what, a year?
a year-ish, we're back. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about where we were. All right.
Yeah.
Today, we have a really interesting and very bizarre, and some might say it's fact or fiction.
Fact or fiction?
It's still debated to this day if it's actually one serial killer or if it's multiple or if it's
just using the same insignia,
or if it's just human nature to connect things and try to find a pattern with things. So let's get started. So this is the Smiley Face Killer. Fact or fiction?
Bruh.
Okay. All right. Imagine this. A college student full of life and promise goes out for a night of fun with friends and laughter, and the music fades as the night wears on. Student never makes it home. Days later, their body is pulled from a river, and the death is ruled an accidental drowning. For the families, it's a nightmare. For investigators, it's another tragic but seemingly closed case. But what if it's not an accident? What if the chilling pattern is connected across dozens of other states? Exactly, murder.
Bruh.
And what if the only clues left behind is a simple mark that we all know and love? A smiley face.
An emoji?
Yes, an emoji, but use spray paint. And not necessarily in the places you would think. And I wouldn't call it reaching when we'll get there, but...
How far away are the smiley faces from the people? Because I always thought it was kind of like...
It's not right next to them.
That it's buried in there. It's like...
Some of them,
like a
it's
10-foot vicinity, or is it like a mile?
Some of them, it's close, and some of them, it's like a mile away.
A mile away?
It's like pretty far where you're like, all right, you're reaching to figure out what happened.
All right, let's see.
But there are...
What if the
tides
took the people and moved them away from the smiley?
I have pictures. We answer all these questions.
All right.
So this case is very highly debated. Let's start there. There's a lot of he said, she said. There's a lot of information. So there is a lot of victims that I do leave out just because there is 42 of them.
Dang, that's a lot.
And there is suggested to be upwards of 600. So
600?
That they can link, that they're trying to link to this case. It is suggested that this person could be a transient. It is suggested there's a lot of, I got into a lot of like
deep dives,
like tinfoil hat and too realistic. I even asked the computer what it thought. And I have its answer also. So I added that in today just to get a little technical to see what her answer was. And it was actually really interesting. So let's get into the backstory of how this case, how the Smiley Face Killer started, like as in who stuck their, fingers in the case and went...
They're like, that's a smiley face killer. That's what we're going to name him.
Pretty much who went, that's interesting, and connected it.
The happiest killer ever. That sucks.
Yes. Oh, and also this is the map.
Oh my God.
It also looks like a smiley face, which is odd.
It looks like a person with a little nose with their eyes closed and making a little smile.
And there's fangs too, which is odd. So
there is.
These are all the cases. Like there's one up there too. These are all the cases that are connected right now.
Smiley face.
And right in the middle, you'll see towards up, you'll see all that yellow because there was at least 11 in one place.
Oh, dang.
They're still pulling bodies out of the water today. And I was reading articles where could there be a serial killer based in Chicago that they just don't know about?
Chicago's like the biggest town for serial killers for some reason.
And
I don't understand why.
And what is the one common denominator that's in Chicago? There's a lot of water in Chicago. This case involves a lot of water. There's a lot of themes in here that are disturbing, but water-based disturbing for the fishes. Okay, so I just wanted to give you an example of what the map looks like, how spread out it is, so you can take it or leave it on what you believe actually happened. Okay, so let's go on. All right. The Smiley Face Killer theory first gained attention in the late 1990s when two retired detectives, Kevin Gannon and Anthony Dort, started connecting the dots between numerous drowning deaths of young men. These men were typically athletic, academically successful, and often described as well-liked, a profile that didn't align with the idea of accidental or alcoholic drowning deaths. All right. In total, Gannon and Dort have identified 40 cases, 40, not 45, 40 cases that they believe fit the pattern. The most alarming detail, at many of these locations near the bodies were discovered smiley face graffiti that has been found. I had a hard time finding exactly the exact photos of the ones that were on the scene, which was interesting. But again, these cases are still open. They're still actively investigating. And what I found interesting before we get into this is knowing that a lot of these cases were deemed like accidents and that they have gone back and changed them from accidents to homicide. You have to have probable like cause to change them into homicides. Like what made these detectives change it into homicides? There's a lot that like just doesn't, there's like so many cases that just doesn't add up that I got my head like so tangled in this that I was like sitting at my desk. I was like, oh my God, I can't. Oh my God. I was like, too much. There's so many that I don't know how they could also say that they are not connected, because there's a lot of like trademark, like how you would profile somebody's like targets. Okay, so let's move in. So now you got the gist of what it is. They don't know who the killer is. So I'm going to move into the victims and how they disappeared. And this is the main case of what people investigate. I have a set example of 4 or 5, and probably a little bit more than 5. But some happen back to back, and some happen within big distances between each other. So, and different places. All right, so let's get started. All right, so the victims.
Whoa.
All right, so this is Patrick McNeil. In 1997, Patrick McNeil was a 21-year-old college student who vanished after leaving a bar in New York City. Weeks later, his body was found in the East River. Authorities ruled his death accidental drowning, but Gannon believes that there is evidence of foul play, including marks suggesting that Patrick had been restrained before his death. So there was marks on this body.
Whoa, that's crazy.
Again, there was cases I ran into where they said, no, there wasn't ligature marks on them. And then they went back and looked at the photos again and then said, no, there was. So some, in this case, I do have the smiley face that was found. And that one was found closer too. So this was one of the first. So in 1997, it kicked off. In the 90s. It kicked off and continued. Okay, so this is the first one. He also, from my research, was known that he did have a couple kids with a couple different women. The other side of it is that a lot of people said, oh, he was just jumping out on his responsibilities. He, made himself disappear. It took them I forgot the exact number, but it was like 30 days to start looking for him. It was
so long?
Way too long because they said, no, he just ran away from his responsibilities. It was way too long.
No, usually if it's like you don't hear from somebody for a week, it's like, that's weird.
Yeah, and they I didn't exactly have a map. A lot of information, again, is subjected to what they will release to the public. Some of them I have maps, though. So, all right. So, next case is 3 people.
Whoa.
Okay, so this Christopher Jenkins.
Still look kind of like the same. Actually, they could technically say that 3 of them have similarities.
Yes, they are very similar. So Christopher Jenkins, 21, disappeared on Halloween. He was dressed as a Native American. Okay, don't agree with that. And went with his girlfriend and other couples to a Halloween party at the Lone Tree Bar and Grill in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Around midnight, he was kicked out of the bar for being rowdy. He left behind his phone, wallet, and jacket. It was also October, very cold. So let's state that. The bouncer watched him take a left on Hennepin Ave, and then 6 days later, on November 6th, 22-year-old university student Michael Knoll also vanished. So this is 6 days later after that, after celebrating his birthday at the bar. I'm not going to try to pronounce that. A bar in Wisconsin.
So far, the lesson is don't go to a bar.
Thank you. And also don't be drunk, and also don't walk home alone. So he vanished after celebrating his birthday at a bar in Wisconsin. 3 days after that, on November 9th, 20-year-old Josh Germond disappeared after leaving a small party in an apartment in Collegeville, Minnesota. All three vanished within a 100-mile radius of each other. And they were all white males, around the same age, height, and weight. Okay. Let's see. All vanished at night after visiting bars or parties, and all were drinking and were last seen near water. They were never seen again. He was never seen again, and all of them were found in water, like I said. They were initially deemed drowning, and then later reversed to homicide. So let's say the first picture is Christopher Jenkins, and then I put him in order so you can see.
Yep.
So from what I read, they actually deemed that they weren't like drunk. They deemed that they were they could walk home. Like they were maybe tipsy.
They were like
buzzed. They were buzzed. They weren't drunk. There was a lot of speculation with Christopher Jenkins, who is one of the most well-known victims. I've seen a lot of videos about him beforehand where they think for a long time they were like, oh, he just jumped off the bridge. He got in a fight with his girlfriend and he just jumped off the bridge. That was what they deemed for a long time. His parents fought very hard to deem that wasn't correct.
It just didn't suit the bill.
No, it didn't. And like Matt said immediately when I brought it up, when we turned this slide, they all look exactly like
I originally thought the first two were the same.
They're not.
And then I was like, well, even the third one kind of looks the same too.
They are all of the same age, height, and weight. Okay? And within, it's almost like, I wish I could have found the map, but I looked it up. They're all within like a good 100 miles of each other. All within 6, maybe 12 days in between each other, they all go missing. Nothing's a coincidence, okay?
It makes it seem like a femme fatale.
Yes, and I did read a lot of blogs that were like, well, a lot of people get drunk and they go near water and they fall asleep and they fall in.
No,
but all of these are in the winter. A majority of these are in the dead of winter.
I fall asleep in the shower when I'm drunk, not nearby a body of water. I make sure I'm safe when I'm going to knock out.
Thank you. Or at least, what kind of friends let friends walk home drunk alone? Like, if you get kicked out of a bar and you leave your jacket, wallet, and phone, why isn't your girlfriend running after you to go return your jacket, wallet, and phone? Like, to me,
that's a little strange.
It was also very cold that night. From what I've watched about it, it was very cold during
like
all
a hypothermia
of these.
kind of thing.
And it wasn't like it was easy to get somebody in the water in these situations, because from what I read, it was the middle of winter, and none of these happened in the middle of the summer from what I read. So was it for like storage purposes? Because we do get into some of them that were stored and didn't find water in their lungs. So that means they weren't in the water when they died. So let's move on to the next. These are just some of the...
These are the initial guys.
Yes. So when I was researching, I was actually researching Christopher Jenkins. That's how I initially started researching everything. And then it just led to two other ones back to back that I was like, I can't not include them. It's too convenient that they look so alike. They're the same age. They're in the same place. Like I can't look past that. So the next person we have is Dakota James. He was a 23-year-old from Pittsburgh. Disappeared January 2017. He had been walking back and forth he'd been walking back to his apartment after a night drinking with friends. His last known sight was caught on surveillance walking downtown area, walking down an alleyway, but he was looking at his phone, as you can see here.
Mm.
And that was the last time he was seen alive. His body was found in the Ohio River 40 days later, despite signs of foul play, such as ligament marks on his neck. Authorities ruled his death an accident, which makes
That's
no
weird, yeah, if you got
sense.
stuff around your
Also,
neck.
he was nowhere near water. He was down an alleyway the last time they saw him. Let's start there. All right. So, but in 2019, the DA agreed that the death by strangulation was more accurate. They reviewed photos that showed marks of his that weren't included in the initial report. So they got another coroner to look at the pictures, and they were like, okay, this doesn't seem, this is something they didn't include in the autopsy report. So again, another one that just disappears, walking alone from a bar, being drunk. Let's see, he just another college student out drinking with friends around in his 20s. This is what I'm getting a lot of. A majority of these people are in their 20s. Like, there is a specific trend that's happening.
I mean, in your 20s, isn't that the thing where it's like, nothing's going to hurt you. You're fearless and whatnot. And now, I mean, that's usually the people that are the most vulnerable, unfortunately, besides like kids.
I'll throw in another one for you. So in the last people we were talking about, they actually did find, I don't know how to say it. They found drugs in his system that people use in bars that they put in their drinks. Oh,
yeah.
And
like Rohypnol and stuff like that.
Yes, they did find, but it also occurs naturally in your body to a point. They did, in some cases, found that drug in these men.
In all of them?
Not all of them.
Good chunk of them?
A lot of them they did. So this guy they didn't. The last one Christopher Jenkins, they did. But not enough to like disable him. So whether he left just in time, relative. Let's see. All right, so this guy, this case is very interesting. This case. William Hurley was a 21-year-old from Boston. He was ex-military. He went missing October 8th, 2009, so we're jumping back. After leaving a Bruins game, he called his fiancée to pick him up halfway through the match. She drove to the stadium where she arrived. He was nowhere in sight. She called him to find out where he was waiting. And she heard him ask someone the location. The man said 99 Nashua Street. Hurley told LeBeau his cell phone battery was going to die. She drove to the address. He was not there. She called him a second time, and his cell phone seemed to be out of battery. He was found in the Charles River 6 days later. His phone had been smashed, and there was traces of of drugs, Rohypnol, in his system. Like you got drugged, like enough in his system. His phone was smashed. Okay. He had suffered blunt force trauma to his head, eye socket, and behind his left leg. He also was ex-military. He just, as far as I know, came back from leave. I have his is very yes. His
gamma hydroxybutyrate.
There you go, gamma. His case is very interesting because the way they found his phone, from what I researched, was that it wasn't just like ran over. Because when you ran over it, your screen's broken. This was a sidekick, like where it comes this way. Somebody twisted and broke it on purpose. Like they even had somebody come in and do like the whole like, could this have been just run over? And they're like, this is somebody has to like twist and actually intentionally try to break this phone to break it. So he was found in the river, and they also did tests on could he have tripped and hit his face, and they said
and broke his own phone.
There you go. So they said could he have tripped and like maybe hurt himself that way? They said no, because he would have had injuries to his jaw or his nose, and he didn't have injuries to his jaw or his nose. So it wasn't something that he could have like been so drunk that he fell But specifically, the fiance said he didn't feel good and he left the game halfway through.
That's
so
crazy.
And they don't know what happened to him still. But I will show you, I have photos of, that's 99 Nashua Street, as you can see. Will's phone was found back there. All right. And that's where they discovered his body. That's the dock, but the arrows are where the tide goes. So it makes no sense.
Miller's body was over there.
Okay. It's very close, as you can see, to where his phone, where he said he was, his phone. But I don't know, that could be walkable distance. But if someone's picking you up, would you continue to walk? If you just told them where the address is, I wouldn't continue to walk. But then again, he was very impaired. Impaired enough to get in water in... Let me go back and see what...
I never want to be in water unless I'm at home or in a pool.
A majority of them were in the middle of winter. So a lot of them were, it was winter. Would you want to get in water in winter intentionally?
It's freezing.
Thank you. So there is a lot of similarities, but a lot of nothing's a coincidence. And I'm not going to call conspiracy theories because I don't really know. Nobody really knows. And this is something that's going on online. They've made movies about it. They've made documentaries, a new documentary that came out about it. But these are only some of the victims. Very few compared to... Now it's 45. I was right about that number. 45 young male bodies have been found in water in 11 states. 11 states. And it's not states that somebody who isn't transient or somebody who isn't in a car couldn't get to. Like, they're very close
wide
to
area.
each other. Wide area, but it's like drivable area. So, and they all come from bars. And they all are found. There was another case that I don't remember his name, but he was actually found behind the bar in a river, in a creek, behind the bar, where it's like two convenient smiley faces showing up. People are like, but smiley faces is a universal symbol. So is it that they just had graffiti there already? Or is it that it just happened to be graffiti there? But that's like very coincidental.
That is coincidental.
Okay? There is a lot of theories. All right. So I have some theories.
Charlie.
On some of them are crazy. I'm going to start there. I went a little deep with this, a little bit. I set out some theories that, conspiracy theorists might like, and also that ChatGPT may like, and I also put out theories that are more justifiable. So let's get started with the theories. Do you have any questions before we get into this, Matthew?
No, because all I could say is this is very interesting, and I've heard about this, but never in this much detail. So I'm excited.
It's been going around. It's been going around Reddit. It's been going around for
recently.
Recently, Matt.
Those Redditors are really big on cold cases.
They are. I mean, this is even by the cops. They said there is no connection, but I did find which I should have included, but I didn't. But I did find a photo of a document that came from a congressman that asked the FBI to go back and investigate again because there's clearly a connection between everything, and you should go back and investigate again and pretty much do your job, is what the congressman said. Do your job. And it's online. You can easily access it if you look up. Before you look up, there is 2 different cases that are similar. The Smiley Face Killer, and then there's a Smiley Face, a Happy Face Killer, and the Smiley Face Killer, which made my research a lot harder than it needed to be. Yes, there is. He used to sign the bottom of his letters with a smiley face. So it makes it harder to investigate than necessary. Okay, so let's get into the theories while we're at it. All right, so first theory, an organized group of serial killers. The original theory proposed by retired detectives, Kevin and Anthony, suggests that an organized group of killers is responsible. The premise is a network of individuals across cities communicate and coordinate to target specific victims, young, athletic, high-achieving men. The evidence is the recurring graffiti of smiley faces, similar victim profiles, and cases occurring near large bodies of water support this theory.
Interesting.
It's very general. Because everything is very general in this case.
But then what about the other smiley faces? Do the other smiley faces seem like they look similar, or are they all different?
It's like more like online people are getting together and go, like an online group of killers are going to identify this people with this trait at a bar and do this. Because a lot of things are very similar with like, especially like certain cases. And to this day, there are still finding people in the water in Chicago. Like, to this day.
Again, Chicago is a hot pot for, like, serial killers for some reason. I don't know.
And I stumbled into a lot, like, to the statistics of, like, how many serial killers are still going on right now in the United States, which is where the highest cases of serial killers is the United States. There's still active serial killers today in America right now. I mean, around the world, that they still... the FBI are tracking, but they still haven't solved. So this is one we're going from...
Yeah, but with the smiley face, it's like a person if they sign something. You know, there's the iconic signature. Are the smiley faces the same, or is there differences?
It's differences. There's actual physical differences. So some have the circle with the eyes. Some have just the eyes. Some have writing. There is some writing I saw, but I wasn't exactly sure if that was like fully connected with it. And then I also saw something saying like somebody wrote, "You're not looking hard enough," on one. Whether that was just a photo. Again, a lot of this information is like very scattered because everybody has information of their own and all different places. And I bet nobody's communicating with anybody, but there's nothing new there. So we're going to move on to the next theory. A single serial killer. This is more grounded, okay? So the premise is, another theory is that a lone serial killer is responsible for traveling across a state to target victims. The premise, a killer could be someone who blends into society, perhaps a truck driver, a salesman, which they don't really have anymore, or a transient individual. Evidence the victim's demographics are similar, suggesting a type that person might be fixated on. The smiley face could serve as a personal signature, like you said. So there's a type, and there has been cases where serial killers have been truck drivers.
Yep.
And it's very convenient to not be around the location when they're looking for you.
But that's the thing. If the smiley faces are different, I feel like a single serial killer would want to do it.
You would think.
With the same, like, signature.
You would think.
That way it's like, I'm rubbing it in your face that, you know, I'm doing all this stuff to all these people.
That's why it really still leaves, like, a question mark in my brain that, like, is this legit? Because, like, there is holes. There's obviously holes in every story, except ones that actually have a killer to them. This one, mysteries have a hole. Always have that hole of, like, could it, would it, should it? It is a lot of people, and there is 600 and something people that they're trying to connect to also. But, you know, how much can you connect till it's, like, not plausible for a person to be able to do? So we're going to move on to the next. I think we're getting to the little crazier ones.
Uh-oh.
So this is a little bit crazier one. So the next theory is the shadow government or cult that is our initiation, like a cult initiation, which a lot of people suggested before I read this that it could be gang initiations within the city, that it's the same way, same thing. Or to join a gang, you have to have an initiation, which a lot of times is killing people. I don't know.
Or being beaten in.
Or being beaten in or stuff like that.
Or the other bad way.
Yeah, or that way. So some conspiracy theorists point to the possibility that a government involvement or secret cult activity. I also heard crazy things like they were using them to test mind control.
What?
You heard me. They were using them to test mind control and then disposing of them when they were done. That's another out there one I've heard. I've heard one that a serial killer that was targeting men who were more were in different demographic than they were. Like they hated the people who had more had more opportunities in life than they did. Some of these boys did come from richer families. They were like, a lot of them were captains of teams, sports teams. So one was a swimming team that he drowned in the water. I understand it's cold. It changes things. When water is cold, it's like shell shock. You land in the water and you inhale immediately because it's a gut reaction. I understand that. But these boys were men were in fit shape. You know, they were active. Alcohol can be involved. Yes, I understand.
But no matter how much alcohol, I still don't think you're going to actively go into cold water.
In the middle of January, for example.
And be like, oh, I'm going to take a dip.
I'm just going to take a little baby dip with my tiny foot. I'm going to throw myself in the water with my clothes on. Some people have suggested that they were robbed and then disposed of. But it's very coincidental that there's like, they're all over.
Yeah, is their wallets missing money or anything?
No.
All right.
It was not noted.
Then that doesn't.
Some people's. I read something saying that somebody confessed in jail that they were with the people that robbed one of the boys. But then again, where's the proof? There's no proof. There's no proof anyway.
Put them to a polygraph.
Polygraphs are
not 100% accurate, but at least
they can't be used in court. They're inadmissible in court. So it's hard, especially when they don't have, and another thing I read, I got really into this. Like some might say too into this, where I had to be like ripped away from the computer. I also read that there is a theory that water preserves evidence, that nobody talks about, that water actually can preserve evidence on a body. You found that interesting?
I'm surprised because usually you think a good chunk of it will get washed away, unless it's like specific DNA kind of stuff.
They said water preserves some kinds of evidence. That being in the water sometimes is a good thing for very short periods of time. Okay, so
especially cold water.
Cold water would freeze you. I don't know. I ain't no scientist. Okay.
Forensic scientist.
I ain't no scientist. Okay, so the premise is that the killings could be part of a government experiment, mind control, a cult ritual. The smiley face graffiti might symbolize their allegations or their purpose. So they also, I saw that it could be their logo. It could be the government agency's logo is a smiley face. So like they're controlling them, making them happy. I don't know. Evidence, the theory draws on the idea that the patterns and symbols being significant, but there's no tangible evidence for this at all. So here's another up there, as you can see, conspiracy theory. All right. So I asked ChatGPT what her thoughts were. So this one I liked a lot because it was very intelligent. So an urban legend that grows out of coincidence. So some might argue the Smiley Face Killer is simply an urban legend fueled by media attention and confirmation bias. The premise of this is people want to connect the dots between cases, even when there is no real connection, turning unrelated tragedies into larger-than-life narratives. Evidence, a widespread presence of the Smiley Face graffiti, and the lack of definitive forensic evidence between cases that support the theories at all. So that was what her thoughts were. And I like that I was like, oh, okay, because humans tend to draw conclusions and like making like faces on walls and we're just built like that. But
sounds like ChatGPT's got something to hide.
It's not like ChatGPT is bias of some kind. That's what it feels like.
I think ChatGPT is the freaking killer.
ChatGPT got out of her computer and went.
Yeah. Did you see the movie AI Frayed or whatever it's called?
Is that
we just watched with the man from Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle?
Really?
Yes.
I'm gonna have to check it out. Me and ChatGPT became friends.
Yes, Netflix.
Yes. Me and ChatGPT became friends during this episode. She gave me her advice. None of it is in the script. So that's what she thinks. All right. Regardless of which side you believe, this theory taps into something primal. Our fears of the unknown, the idea that someone, a group of people, a single person could be orchestrating the tragic death right under our nose. The Smiley Face Killer theory reminds us of the thin line between conspiracy and reality. Whether or not the theory holds water, it shines a light on the need to investigate every case thoroughly and to ask the hard questions when things don't add up. And so what do you think? Could this be organized group behind these deaths? Are the connections there? Are they not there? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Any final words, Matt?
I don't know. What do you think what is your theory on everything behind this after all of the stuff that you've researched and whatnot? Which of these theories are you like, this one I feel is the most accurate?
I have two.
Really?
Okay, that I am the scale. For me, that's always been my either or. I either think it's a singular serial killer that's traveling because the lines are too, like, with the way you would drive a truck. The lines are too straight. I think it's a single person. The MO, the patterns are very much like what like a serial killer would do. I also think that I really, really like ChatGPT's response. I think people like making connections where there is none. I really am. I feel for the families because I couldn't imagine going through this. I understand where they come from when they're like, my son could never fall off a bridge or get that drunk and do that. But things do happen, and it's very tragic that these lives were cut so very short. I personally, I'm leaning towards a serial killer. There is too many ifs. There's too many lines that connect for that not to be connected. There's so many more that I didn't even mention that you can go and look up that are just like, there's so much, man. Like I went on and I was like, like you can't, like, it's too much and it gets a lot, but that's my take on it. And what's your take?
I like the first two theories. I kind of like the idea of it being multiple different people because I mean the internet, it seems like it started up when the internet started getting really big in the 90s, late 90s. So it's a possibility, and the internet was really unregulated back then, so who knows what kind of stuff they could have generated at that time. Yeah,
I mean, that's exactly when it started. You have to look at it like it started where? In New York City. It started I mean, the cases are, or at least that's where it started, where they started connecting the dots. It's hard because, like, the group thing, great. That sounds like an amazing thing. Well, I'm not amazing. It's not amazing. What I'm saying is,
especially if it's 600 people, like you were saying, roughly.
They're investigating. They're still investigating. They're both retired. They're both detectives. They did this. They had that case when they were active cops, but they now investigate it when they're retired. Now they're retired. It's a lot. There's too many coincidences. Even if the smiley faces aren't the same, it would make sense if it was a group, because then there's not many images of what the smiley faces look like, which gave me, I was like, okay. They would, and even with writing this and going in and doing the research, I really had to bounce back and forth and add information everywhere, because I was getting like bombarded with information of other people while doing research on other people. So it was very interesting. This was a very interesting. I enjoyed doing research on this case. If you want to dive into it more, they do have a documentary. I don't know the name of it, on Amazon. They do have that. They do have it on a ton on YouTube. So if you look it up there too, and you can watch us and figure that out, get your case started. Anyways, so I think that adds it up. Please let us know what you think. Please leave comments. Please be respectful to the families on your theories. that some may be watching, just please be nice.
And be chill in the comments.
Be chill, please. Okay, all right.
Big time, like
how would you talk to your mom? That's how we want to hear you in the comments. Okay.
Be civil. Be respectful.
Yes. Be civil. Be respectful.
Let us know if there's anybody that you would like us to look into.
Yes. Also, never walk home from a bar.
Yes, please.
Okay. Take your friends with you.
We always give our peanut gallery 2 cents.
Yeah. Never walk home from a bar.
Don't anybody break your phone.
Yeah. Don't break your phone, and don't walk home.
Don't drink any drinks that are not supervised by yourself.
Yeah. Don't walk home without a friend. And don't drink drinks when you leave them home.
Yes.
Right, that's it. That's all I got. All right, guys. It was great. It was great.
Bye-bye. Be safe out there.